Hi, I'm Dr. Jason Troyer, and this is our last week for our book club, and we've worked our way entirely through Confessions of a Funeral Director by Caleb Wilde. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we welcome any feedback you have about the book club series here in the Finding Resilience emails, including maybe recommendations for a different book that you might want us to cover in the future. In the last 4 chapters of the book, Caleb covers several important topics, including specifically some of the grief behaviors and reactions we see in the recently bereaved. Some of these really follow some of the initial shock reactions and kind of initial coming to terms with loss sorts of reactions that people have. He also describes a situation that really changed his mind in terms of how he thinks about grief. And that was specifically with Jennifer's mother, who had created a shrine to her daughter. And at first, Caleb really thought that was something that was pretty morbid or a sign that she was really stuck in her grief. And then he really changed about a 180 and seeing how that could really be a way to be a part of grief and this transition from a death negative perspective to a death positive perspective. So I'm curious if your views on grief have changed based on your interactions with recently bereaved people as part of your professional duties, or also part of your own personal experience in terms of losses you've experienced, and maybe you've changed the way you view grief behaviors and certain grief actions over time. Related to this is Caleb's description of how he's changed his language in talking with the recently bereaved. Specifically, he's talked about changing from more prescriptive language to information or language that's more open and supportive, instead of things that may be interpreted as platitudes. So I'm curious if you've over time changed some of your typical responses or typical things you say when you feel like you need to offer support or simply be there with the bereaved. In chapter 15, Caleb talks also about arriving at Jim's house, where his family is very actively grieving his loss. And it's pretty clear that Jim's family does not want the funeral directors to take him away in this removal situation. So Caleb talks about approaching this situation with a lot more wisdom that he's gained over the years. He's not a new funeral director at this point in the story. And I wonder if there are situations where you feel like you're really wiser than you were before. Perhaps something that's important or practical that you've learned along the way. Maybe even sharing some stories about how you used to do things or the first time you did things, even some of those cringeworthy sorts of situations that you had to go through in order to kind of learn some new ways of doing those sorts of things. So those are several of the questions. There's a couple more. I hope you download the full list of questions, and we'll spend some time with those, thinking, journaling about them, or talking about them with your colleagues or maybe fellow students. Now, I fully realize that there's no such thing as a perfect book out there. I thank you for going on this journey with me, but you may not have agreed with everything that Caleb has written. You may not have agreed with what I've decided to really highlight or pull out of the book, or things that I've interpreted from it. But I hope you found it helpful to review it in terms of kind of giving you a chance to talk about funeral service and funeral practices in this, especially these very deeply personal sorts of things that Caleb likes to talk about. It's certainly been helpful for me to always be reminding me of what funeral professionals deal with on a day-to-day basis. It is a powerful reminder for the various challenges that you have, but also the many opportunities where you are able to bring blessings to the families that you serve and the care that you provide to the deceased. So with that, thank you for going on this journey with us. Thank you for all that you do. And on behalf of myself and everyone at Homesteaders Life, thank you so much for all the blessings that you bring families every day.